Well, shooters and reloaders and 3 Circles passengers and members, it's Fortune Cookie 45 LC coming to you from the Hot Lead Zone Express. And let me show you what we're doing today over a coffee chat. Grab yourself some coffee and let's talk about these Shotshells. And I don't know if you have ever seen any of these or not, but they're called Activ. And Activ Shotshells were a big deal back in 1970 to 1990. Well, the reason why I'm telling about the Activ Shotshells in this video is because they're very memorable for me for the following reason. And it was in the summer of 1982 when I was shooting competitive trap early in my competitive career, and I was at the Livermore Trap Range, which is my home trap range. And what happened was, all day Saturday while I was there practicing shooting the 16-yard singles, and I had broken every bird that day. 8 whole rounds of trap, I didn't miss a single bird, which means I had shot 200 straight. And now, before you think I'm bragging or so, it's not that big a trick for a competition trap shooter to break a lot of birds in a row. So that was easily my best that I had done, and I was still alive for the string. Because the day was over, I went back the following day to see how many more I could run straight. Well, I'm using the Activ Shotshells. And at the time, the Activ Shotshells were a big deal. They were around, the people were using them, and you could easily pick up Activ empty hulls at the range because they were just everywhere. I'll tell you more about the Activ shells in a little while. But anyway, on Sunday, I shot the first round of trap and shot 25 straight, which means now my run is 225 straight. Not only was I breaking the birds, but I was really smashing them, turning them into dust, which means that number one, you're centering the birds in your pattern very nicely, but also you got a nice tight pattern, because that's what gives you the smoking of the targets. So I was doing that. So comes my 10th straight trap, and I'm saying, wow, wouldn't it be great to shoot 10 straight traps clean? Well, the first 10 birds I smoked them, and so feeling real good, perhaps a little too confident, because I got an easy target. And that target came out, and I read it as being a straight target, but it had a little angle to it. And what happened was I shot right next to it and missed it. And it was a combination of misreading the trap, maybe a little gust of wind, because in the afternoon it gets a little windy there in Livermore. And also the tight pattern. All those could have come up and caused me to miss that bird. Because if I were lucky, I might have edged it, and a couple of pellets might have hit it and just take a piece off it. It still would have been alive for the string, but nope, it broke. My string broke at 225 straight birds. No, 235 straight birds before I missed. So I'm always remembering about that because of the Activ Shotshells. Anyway, let's tell you about these. So at the time, the Winchester AA Shotshell was the standard for competition loads for your clay target games like trap, skeet, international trap, international skeet. And we really didn't hear about sporting clays back then. It didn't really catch on until later on. But anyway, the Winchester AA had the reputation for being the best loads to use for competition. Well, this company in West Virginia decided to see what they could do about competing with the Winchester AA. So what they did was they created a shell that could be a little bit less expensive than a AA Winchester load. And the components would be the same, a little less expensive than the Winchester AA. Well, what Activ did was, in order to make their shell a little less expensive, they did away with the brass base. And instead, they injection molded the case just like the Winchester AA, but they embedded in the base a little screen of steel so that that made it strong enough to have a shell without the separate brass base that had to be produced and also put on there. Now the primer pocket was a little balloon of polymer, as you see there, a little balloon that stuck up and the primer went inside it, and the bottom of that was supported by that steel little network screen inside there. The rest of the idea is kind of like the Winchester AA. So they were hoping that they could make inroads on the market with their shell. And in fact, they were successful in that a lot of people bought the Activ shells and used them, so that on any given trap shooting day in Livermore, I could pick up empty Activ shells. The AA's weren't as easily found because people saved them to reload. And the Activs could also be reloaded like the Winchester AA's, and people reloaded these as many as a dozen times, just like the Winchester AA's. So people were raving about them. To show you how successful Activ had become, there was reloading data in all of your common little sources, such as this reloader's guide from Hercules. If you open the page, you'll see that there is a whole bunch of reloading data for Activ shells. You see what it says here? 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch Activ plastic shells. And all this is Activ reloading data. And it goes on to the next page. Activ, Activ. And so all of that's reloading data for Activ. Then you have Fiocchi plastic hulls, and that of course was very popular because in the international circuit, Fiocchi ammunition was easily seen in competition on the international circuit. But that shows you how Activ had become popular. So you see, what I've got here are my own reloads of Activ shot shells, and look at this. Even after all these many years have gone by, since the 1980s, my reloads maintain their crimp and their goodness. Look at those crimps, are all good. These were loaded with Remington 209 primers, and I used Winchester AA 452 AA powder in these, and then I used the Winchester AA 12 wads, which are specially made for Winchester AA hulls. They're tapered on the inside, and so are these. So the Winchester AA wads work real well with the Activ shells. And then I used 1 1/8 ounce of Magnum number 8 shot, except when I shot handicap, and then I went to 7.5 shot, 1 1/8 ounce loads of those. And the thing about the Activ shot shells is that because of the balloon for the primer, you have a little extra case capacity in there. So some people reported that they were able to load shorter wads and get a 1 5/8 ounce field load in these empties. Well, I never tried to do all that, but I shot a lot of the Activ shot shells, and what happened to cause Activ to go by the wayside? Because today you don't hear about Activ shells at all. You might run into some of these at some point, because Activ is a company that was making shot shells from 1970 till about 1990. So for 20 years they're cranking out shot shells. You may very well run into boxes of these, or run into the hulls somehow. In fact, BPI sold Activ shot shells, empty, brand new Activ shot shells for quite a while. So you might run into these, and that's why I'm doing this video. It's interesting that if you go to YouTube today, you only find one video on Activ shot shells, and it talks about reloading the Activ shot shells. And if you look extra hard, you'll actually find another video on YouTube that is talking about the Activs, but it's not in the title. So 2 videos out of all the videos out there, and this will be the 3rd. But what caused Activ to disappear as a ammunition company for 12 gauge competition loads is that there were some reports that what happened after doing reloads of the Activ shells, that eventually the shells failed right there above the head, and what would happen is you'd fire a shot and the entire body of the shell would be blown into the barrel and would be stuck in there. And when you ejected the round, all you got out was the little head section. And if you didn't notice that or realize what happened, what could happen is the next round will blow up your barrel. And that came out and was pushed on the shooting news, and it spread by word of mouth. And after I heard about that, I didn't want to take a chance on that, because when you're shooting competition, the last thing you need is to always look at every one to see that the whole shell ejected. And people who shot pumps and semi-autos, of course, were turned off of Activ for that reason. And the competition shooters were turned off because, again, if you're shooting an over-under or something, every time you take the shell out, you gotta wonder, did the whole shell come out? Or did the body get blown into the barrel and is still stuck in there? Well, we can't have that breaking up our concentration. So what happened was I shot the rest of my Activs and let them lie on the ground, didn't pick up any more. You would think the company would have come out with some notifications that they increase the strength of the head of the case area in order to survive and keep in business, but the damage had been done and Activ wasn't going to be able to compete any longer. The Winchester AA's solidified their position, and that was all there was to that. The Activ shot shells disappeared from the people's consciousness, and today you don't see them at all. But you still might run into some, and these are the Activ shot shells. They are denoted by this little red hornet. That was their logo. In fact, if you got some boxes of Activ shot shells, the box will say Red Hornet on there. Kind of interesting. Take care. See you next video. Bye for now.